it's the time for the show on the Friday. We call it Bring It In from TrueHoop on the Zoom. And it's Special Friday, which means we are featuring the great David. How are you?
All good on a Friday.
And there's the clock. Dun, dun, dun.
Legal is ready, and she's not playing games today. She's like, listen, I got bandwidth issues. If y'all mess around, we're going to have real problems today.
She's already kicked you out once today, Jarod.
Don't push her. Could be the last show while there's a season going on.
Oh, very true. Very true.
Yeah. And Jarod, your last show from this
location, yes, from this lovely Parisian location in the first arrondissement. Yes. I'll be moving north of Les Jardins. I don't even know how do you say it in French, but whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. But the point is, moving famously not stressful. You're gonna have a very relaxing time.
Great. Moving's always with a dog and like who doesn't like anybody being anywhere near us. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
It's so easy and fun.
So, as we know, it will not be a Friday without a mention of the number one band in the entire world, the capitalist machine. Here in the U.S. and we can seize their wealth. This is an article in Jacobin. And what I want to talk about here is we've got a president who first wanted to stall this second stimulus package because, we don't want to give these people more money. But now it's like, shit, if I give them more money, they might vote. We are arguing over $1,200 every American, right? $1,200. Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos is on track to become a trillionaire, and the families that have a net worth of $1 million or more literally control almost all the wealth in this entire country. Think about that. 615 billionaires, 615 people with $1 billion in net worth or more. Yet there are 40 million people in this country living in poverty. The thing about when people at the top of the chain, the 1%, get more money and more wealth, they don't put that stuff back into the economy. That's not how it works, right? But you give it to the 99%, everybody else, you know what they do? Pay for groceries, services like haircuts, mowing, the things that keep the economy running round and round that we need to go on. And we're literally sitting here arguing about, well, we probably shouldn't give these people an extra $1,200. But, hey, shouts to the capitalist machine and the wealthy who, another $1 trillion in the bank, baby. Unbelievable.
Wait, Jarod, did you seize your new apartment?
I might have seized it. I said, you know what? It's time for me to get some of this.
Congrats, man.
They should all be wearing eye patches. All right. So I read yesterday that Russell Westbrook left an $8,000 tip for the staff at the hotel they were at. When my wife and I travel, I think she leaves like $5 a day typically for the housekeepers that come in. So if you're there a month, it's $150 give or take, and 2 months, obviously double that. It's nowhere close to $8,000. And Jerry Seinfeld always talks about he jokes about this on his cars. He talks to people. Did you leave a tip? Did you leave a celebrity tip? And like Jerry Seinfeld is not the world's greatest human by any stretch, but he is very aware of how lucky he is and how much money he's making all the time. He really is one of those 0.01%ers that Jarod likes to talk about. But he is not cheap when it comes to tipping people, and he thinks it's part of the deal of being so famous. And I'm glad Russell Westbrook does too. And we've knocked Russell Westbrook for his shot selection, his emotional on-court game, which sometimes isn't the best thing for his team, and we're allowed to do that. My experiences with him through players that I've talked to adore him and love him. And my guess is so do all those people working at the hotel that are part of that tip. And so I give kudos to him and credit to him. And I hope other people and celebrities and really wealthy people follow his lead going forward.
That's very nice. Thank you, David. I'm going to be really episode New York's podcast, The Daily, today. They go to Luzerne County. They're just showing the thing. And they talk to all these voters. And although I think people are like, oh, the polls in Pennsylvania strongly favor Joe Biden, this show is mostly interviewing lifelong Democrats, white working class Pennsylvanians who have switched to be Trump supporters. And it explains why. And it's about loss of jobs, lower wages, worse benefits, and mostly feeling shown up by Democrats, where they feel like Park Avenue is telling them that they're stupid and racist and don't belong. It's a lot to think about. And we could talk about it more, but I would point out this one big change, which is misunderstood, I feel, which is, to me, what happened in Luzerne County is that these jobs are in factories and mining companies that have been taken over by private equity, and private equity has screwed Luzerne County. And in particular, and now private equity is very close with Trump. So Schwartzman, his key right-hand man is one of the billionaires who currently runs the Philadelphia 76ers. Apollo is the other one I mentioned here in Vanity Fair. Also, Josh Harris of the 76ers works there. So the way to make billions now and be influential like you own an NBA team is to be in private equity, and that's the problem that is facing here. This is a little trick Trump's done on our brains.
Shouts to Stephen Schwartzman and Leon Black, heads of the capitalist machine. So
you're gonna love that apartment, Jarod.
Actually, Schwartzman's apartment is really nice. Anyway, LeBron's going for his fourth title. Oh, sorry, Judy, play that.
Accomplishment combined with all your others vault you over the Johnsons and Birds and Russells and Chamberlains and all that.
No, I think that's something that I really can't say can be established. Each one of us play in our different eras with different teams with different levels of success, and to compare all of them and say one's better than the next, it's an unfair justice to the art or to the artists. You know, being that Magic Johnson, Wilt Chamberlain, all the guys before me were the artists of this game of basketball, and we've all learned from them, and we've improved the picture to a certain extent. And to say that one improvement is better than all of it, it's an unfair assessment.
This accomplishment combined with all
by Jordan and really, and John Hollinger, a friend of the show, has a piece out in The Athletic about how really it's about LeBron and Michael Jordan right now, and sort of the two of them sort of in leagues of their own, which I encourage people to read it if they have subscriptions. And we're going to get into this next week when we do our comparison about players and what we're going to do. But his point is correct, right? Everyone builds on whom came before them, right? That's the template, and you grow and get better and everything advances. And I think we are doing a disservice if we compare era over era, right? It's about improving the game and
Look forward to that discussion. Stephen A. Smith, Judy's going to play a video of Stephen A. Smith talking about the NBA.
Called against the person that assaulted them, as opposed to today where you can get ejected for having bad breath. And LeBron James at 6'9", 260 pounds, is playing in the softest era we have ever seen in NBA basketball. The fact that Isaiah Thomas ignores that is beyond me. Floor is y'all's.
Thank you, Stephen A., for giving me the floor. I will say up front that he said some nice things about me when we've discussed things in the past, publicly on his shows, whatever, but he's fucking out of his mind. And so for anyone listening to this, it is not the player's fault that the NBA decided to call elbows to the head as flagrant fouls. The point is they're still doing it, and these guys still keep getting hit in the head and busting. I mean, watch these NBA finals. Guys get hit in the face all the time. They're not the rules have changed, but they're still the same toughness, if not even tougher. As someone who's been coaching for a long time, as I've said many times, I see no difference in the level of softness. The difference is old people won't recognize it, which is how always humans are. It's always harder when you were growing up. BS. The rules have changed. The players are as tough as ever. They're the same as ever. And those guys back then who played on a tiny bit of land would have a very tough time playing today. And if they couldn't punch people in the face, well, that's part of the deal. Whatever.
Well said.
Get over it. Get over it.
Judy, do you mind playing the little chunk of the vice presidential debate?
It's just slow.
Something weird happened. Okay, I can tell you. It's easy. Kamala Harris, you probably saw the debate where she said that she would take the debate if take the vaccine, take it, but not if Donald Trump said to take it. This is a no-brainer, right? And it feeds into a quote that I heard the other day, which is people say we live in a post-truth world, but the virus doesn't live in a post-truth world, right? Like it moves exactly how the scientists are trying to figure out. Dana Smith and smart people are looking into how it really travels, and it has nothing to do with opinion, nothing at all, right? Like this is where it's not Dr. Fauci has one brain that's better than Donald Trump's in assessing this. I mean, he does, but the point is this brain of his is interpreting the evidence of the work of thousands, right? A test of a population and safety, right? So this to me is this is the point. We're not living in a post-truth world, and we never will. Global warming, glaciers will melt, not in accordance with opinion of power brokers, right? We're living in a world that we need to understand, and it takes very rational, sober thinking.
Well, Henry.
I'll take a note.
Yeah, make sure we do.
So Wichita State head coach Greg Marshall, men's basketball coach, is in some trouble. There's an investigation and stuff that turns out that he punched a player, choked an assistant coach, directed racial and ethnic slurs at players. And, we've got all sorts of people in the college basketball world around this. Marshall has long been talked about sort of as a good coach, but the question's always been, well, why isn't he able to leave Wichita State and go to a bigger program, and what's the issue? And there've always been whispers about how he conducted himself and what was going on behind the scenes. And now it's coming to light. And I thought about this as it relates to Coach Thorpe, in the sense that Coach Thorpe talks about breathing spirit into players and how seriously you, Coach, take the profession of coaching and the calling and responsibility you see in it. Clearly, Greg Marshall does not see it the same way. And you having a son, I know that you would never even remotely consider sending your son to that school. But that people in well-being of young people, and these are young, I mean, look, they're 18, but they're children, right? Like, you are in charge of them, and you commit these kinds of atrocities. And this isn't an isolated incident, as you see by the string of things. And there's always something that sticks out to me when I see stuff like that. People tell you who they are, oftentimes, but you don't believe it for whatever your own reasons are. And we need to believe people when they tell us who they are, and their actions tell us.
Yes, we can talk about that too if you want.
We got a lot to talk about today.
Apparently, Joe Biden gave a speech recently and referenced Doc Rivers. So we were ahead of the game. We've been merging politics and basketball long before those politicians have done so. And Doc said, Joe Biden said, quote, Doc Rivers, the basketball coach, choking back tears when he said, quote, we're the ones getting killed. We're the ones getting shot. We've been hung. It's amazing how we keep loving this country, and this country does not. Doc that. That. I think about what it takes for a Black person to love America. That is a deep love for this country that has for far too long never been recognized. So I'm not here to say Joe Biden is a perfect human being. I think it's very clear, at the very least, he's been racially insensitive for much of his life, as many of us have been, whether willfully or not. But part of growing up is just that. We're supposed to evolve. He gladly served under a Black man with the name Barack Hussein Obama, and never once made any of us, at least that I know of, feel like he felt like he was the better man and should have been president. And there's some degree of dignity in that and grace in that. And he's brought on Kamala Harris to be his vice president. And then he says that, quote, I've never heard a white politician ever say what Joe Biden just said. And I like him more today than I did 2 days ago. I was going to vote for him either way because of the competition. That to me is something we should be embracing, guys, and get more people to talk like that and recognize what people like Doc Rivers have said.
You may have heard that they almost kidnapped the governor of Michigan. What the hell? I mean, look, constitutional scholars and such have been sounding alarm bells for a while. Now it gets very practical and real. Like, they almost fucking kidnapped a governor. Like, they scouted it out. They were going to blow up the bridge. Oh, whatever. You probably read that. The same thing I read. So a couple of notes about that. One is, there were rallies in Michigan that were funded by a collection of Michigan-based rich people, including the DeVos family. Betsy DeVos is the education secretary. Other DeVosses own the Orlando Magic. And also in that family, of course, is Eric Prince, maybe the world's most famous mercenary. I think it's important now that these very well connected, White House connected, very well who've been on the right wing of Michigan politics for a long time, they're from Michigan, make clear where they stand on this, right? Like they did fund some of the rallies. Some of those people who were just in that photo there met, according to the indictment, met at one of those rallies. So I just like, let's not let this slide, right? This is a violent assault on the elected governor of Michigan. Like, are we all on board with this? No? Yes? Let's be clear.
I want to address that right away to everyone listening, watching right now live. Help. I'm terrible at this, but I need your help in trying to get Henry on some major television network shows like Rachel Maddow show, for example, because he's the only person. I follow lots of journalists, and I'm not partners with all of them, but I still am learning from everyone. No one else is holding the mirror right up to the most powerful people in our government more than Henry is. This is not a self-serving statement. I've told him this times. We need to be talking about this. The most important people are the richest people in America, and they are able to sit back and do what they're doing, and no one in the media is pointing out what's happening, except for Henry that I'm aware of. Obviously, there's some other articles, but they tend to skirt around the issues. He is right in their fucking face. And this, if we want change, this has to happen. So we need to get people just like Dr. Mina was Malcolm Gladwell did one tweet. We got him on our show. Now he's on CNN and New York Times and everywhere else. TrueHoop Network, True Family, we need to start promoting Mr. Abbott on this particular issue more than anything else right now.
That's long as I can do it in a hoodie without shaving, I'm in.
Let's go. That's fine. But then you'll look like those terrorists, actually. We should be careful about that.
I don't know if you guys saw this. So someone on the internet, and this is, last week when I talked about eyes on the prize, arguing semantics about, this is a picture of the house of one of who's a terrorist group, and it's saying he's poor, and and basically alluding to the fact that economic conditions lead, are one of the factors that lead to radicalization. And listen, in an academic sense, anybody with a brain knows that. Yes, obviously. But we're not talking, that is not the issue right now. And we don't, and too much of the time, we get caught up in arguing semantics and points as to, well, these are the reasons that lead to radicalization and not this and not that. The reality is very clear. And ultimately, from what I said from the beginning, there is a system whereby a small amount of people benefit at the expense of the majority of everyone else, right? That is the problem. But the system in itself is it's an echo, it's a feedback loop. And all it does is repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. If I have one, it's much easier to get 2, 3, 4, so on. That's why Jeff Bezos is going to be a trillionaire. That's why these people's generational wealth doesn't go anywhere. Because once you have it, it is literally impossible. And they're literally out here struggling to pay ends meet. Like literally, hey, I might get evicted from my apartment tomorrow. These people are dealing with serious things, but I've got 5 summer homes. I'm doing whatever. I'm doing all this. This is the situation we have to topple. And when we realize that as a collective, that we are the many and they're the few, that's when we can actually do things and make this happen. But I don't know if we'll ever coalesce among something.
Well, I think we feel the blunt end of that, right? Like the systems, this daily show in Luzerne County is convincing that things are hard, right? This is one of the places where they have the meat packing plant where a ridiculous number of positive tests and everyone has to go back to work in the morning, right? That's hard. Those are the jobs that are available, and those jobs are hard, and the money's not great, and the benefits aren't great. And I feel like a core sample to kind of peek into our priorities is this healthcare thing. I think I bring people, but talk to whom do the benefits flow, right? And it is if you're an employer or a private equity investor or someone in a position of tremendous power, if you're interested in making sure that people have healthcare, then that's inarguable that you're okay with benefits flowing to the many, right? But if it's important, now this is where I think about this really weird Sheldon Whitehouse, the senator on the district committee, saying that somebody gave $17 million just to influence the Supreme Court, right? And like, he's like, you better be damn sure they're in on the selection, right? And he said that their priority is just to make sure that we don't have healthcare. Like,
Yes.
what?
Yes.
Whose
Yes.
priority would that be? Like, that is an incredibly inhuman priority, right? So to me, I just feel like, look at that one. Like if you're in Luzerne County, like, look at who wants to give you healthcare. There was a lot of those voters were saying like, right? Like the Democratic Party hasn't, and I'm not saying this is some, I don't want to tell you that I think either party's perfect, but like, I think in this exact moment, what's happening is, people are donating, very wealthy people are donating lots of money to the Republican Party to not to avoid the bill for healthcare and other things
Right,
like
to
that,
strip
right?
you of.
And that's what they're feeling in Luzerne County, and that's why they're feeling radicalized, right? But to me, it's like, no, the healthcare would be a giant, it would dramatically reduce your likelihood of bankruptcy, like dramatically reduce your likelihood of suffering. That's a good thing to want.
In the book, The Fifth Risk, the two things that I always think about, because I'm not smart enough to remember everything in that brilliant book, and I need to read it more than just the twice I've read it. But the young guy, I think he was a young Jewish guy who was a mathematician kind of guy, who came up with the idea of selling weather insurance to farmers, and in the process of that, he studied like soil and everything. And when he once spoke to farmers, well, if you plant things this way and till the soil this way and do this and this, you'll have more success. And instead of being appreciative, they were angry that some, New York nerd was able to know this kind of stuff via the internet, because as one family said, we've lived here 3 generations. We're the 3rd generation here. And they got angry that they didn't understand that what this guy was talking about. They felt left behind. That's a messaging problem. And then the second part was a person representing the loans that the federal government makes to the local banks, which then they make to the local farmers, whatever. And when the government official was talking to those people who were getting the loans from their local bank about the importance of the federal government, they said, we don't deal with the federal government. We hate the federal government. We get it from our local bank. And he said, I know, but where do you think they got the money from? It's all from us. That's a messaging issue. And that's why Trump got elected. This guy, the insurance guy predicted Trump would win because he saw how much anger there was. So what Henry was saying right there is a brilliant way of explaining to them a lot of your problems, not all of them, but a lot would be solved if you knew you don't have to lose all your money because someone got sick, or just to make sure you don't get sick. Like, this is a process towards whereby you'll just have a better life with a couple more dollars in the bank. And I can't even say how much I pay for health insurance every month. I'm very lucky that I can do it. But it's a joke that we have to pay this much for a family of 4 for health insurance. It's alarming. Henry's point is so great about it's alarming that there are forces at work to prevent them. Well, Kamala talked about it the other night. Like, they're in court right now, trying to take your healthcare away amidst a pandemic, while they're also taking away your ability to vote by mail in a pandemic. Like, these are not accidents, right? To get to Jarod's capitalist machine. All of this is part of the system, right?
Healthcare is, oh, sorry, we said something funny, Henry? Like a joke was coming.
No, you go first, and then I'm going to make it darker again.
The system, right? We just talked about that, right? It is designed in that way where healthcare and like your actual ability to feel well is a commodity, right? To be literally bartered, bought and sold. Which, think about that statement, insane. But that 1%, the people who control and make those decisions, it doesn't matter, because most of them do self-insure and they don't fucking use healthcare because they got plenty of money. They can go pay whomever to see whomever, whenever, right? And that's sort of this imbalance that we have, right? Is that if I want the best care in the world because I'm Steven Schwartzman, well, I can get it because I can just pay for whatever doc to come on call. You, the guy who cleans the basement of my Schwartzman's BlackRock, right? Or Blackstone.
I get confused all the time.
I know one of the two.
Blackstone, I'm pretty sure Blackstone.
You, the janitor who cleans my basement, you got cancer too? Sorry. You make that doctor. No, well, and this is the inequities we're talking about.
Well, I don't pretend for a second we're going to live in a world where, like, there are 10,000 people in Steven Schwartzman's industry with Steven Schwartzman's goals who just aren't as good at it as he is, right? Like, I don't pretend they're all going to get enlightened and want to give health insurance to their janitors. Like, that's not the world we're headed to. What does bother me is that he's so influential over the public process, right? Like, he gets to be private sector greedy. Like, it's just, that's going to happen. We all have a little bit of that, right? Everybody wants to make a good living or whatever. What shouldn't happen is that dominates, who's on the Supreme Court or what our policy is for freaking doctors. You know what I mean? Like, he just got to be sidelined on that one. I'm sorry. And this is where I actually think we're going to look back at Citizens United. It'll be like, this is the crisis, right? It's just now we're in a point where, like, $3 a month. Like, I don't know what those meetings go like. Right. But it's not like he wasn't meeting with you, Jarod. He wasn't meeting with me. Right. Like, he has to make compromises too. Right. This is a bummer for all of us.
And that's the reality of big time politicians or politics. Right. You can't get elected without money. Number one. Well, who has money? The donating and ruling class. Well, when they give me X amount of millions to get elected, when I get in office, there are concessions that have to be made now. That's how this game works. Like,
and we'll see it. We'll know what those concessions are. It reminds me of John Grisham's book, The Pelican Brief, which was a great movie with Denzel Washington and Julia Roberts, where two justices were killed over basically oil, more or less, drilling for oil in New Orleans. It's what's called the Pelican Brief, right? There was I think Pelican there, whatever. I wouldn't put anything past what's happening now. Like, killing, I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was old, but I'm suspect everything right now. Their way of life, the other side of how I feel, is at risk right now in a way that it hadn't been for a bit, and anything's possible. That's how I see it.
There's wow. Oh, I meant to make a little diagram of this. Did anybody read the Elliot Broidy stories over the last 24 hours?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so here's let's see if I can do this accurately. So the then president of Malaysia is wrapped up in a scandal. Also implicated in the scandal is a guy named Joe Low. Joe Low is like an international fugitive, I think now. They think he's in China. Joe Low, here we go, reaches out to this guy, Elliot Broidy, who has Trump connections. He's an arms dealer and a bunch of other stuff. And he's now, Elliot Broidy is apparently pled guilty as part of a court fight. Giant Goldman Sachs involved, blah, blah. Anyway, so, but at some point, if you read deep in the story, they need to move a bunch of money and have it not like that suspicious. Broidy's getting allegedly $6 million from Joe Low, but it's being routed through some Department of Justice official and one other man. And this is where my eyes like, what? The other man is a former member of the Fugees.
Of the what?
Wait.
The Fugees.
Really?
Wait.
You heard me right.
I thought you were going to say it was DeJoy, because he and DeJoy were both.
And who was it? Praz? What the?
Wow.
I don't know. I can't explain it any further than that. There's just a mention. I'm like, what? Wait, I recommend everybody just check that out.
Rachel Maddow had a big thing on it last night, because she was talking about his Trump connections, and he was one of the RNC chairmen. Like, he's on the board. And then a fourth guy who's in jail right now, or indicted. Like, criminals are us, basically.
Yeah, this was my little sneaky, like, snarky tweet yesterday, but I feel like the
Lawrence Frank one.
What's that?
The Lawrence Frank tweet.
No, that one too. But
that's another snarky tweet.
No, Mike Pence was like, "Oh yeah, no, I feel terrible for Breonna Taylor and her family, but the looting, right?" Yeah. And what I wanted to say was like, what rate of arrests or criminality was there among the protesters vis-a-vis your administration?
Right.
Are you really in position? What did Kamala Harris said? Like, I will not be lectured, right? Like, I will not be lectured by someone who works in that house about crime. Come on.
Right.
Hello,
there is a game tonight.
Indeed.
Yes, the finals.
It might be. I mean, there's two more games before we do a show on Monday with Jarod here in its entirety. Who thinks on Monday?
Everything that we've seen from the Miami Heat suggests they're not going to roll over tonight and just, not show up. They will play hard. Is that going to be enough? I don't know. It's not looking great. Like, I don't know. It's just not looking great. I think LeBron, with this extra day of rest, and this is the closeout, because you don't want to play any more basketball this season. Like, I think he's like, this is my time. I think he's going to really put his foot on the neck. And if Anthony Davis plays like he's been playing, like, the Heat have nothing. Like, what are they going to do? They have no recourse.
What do you think, David?
So, I mean, obviously, Jarod's right. You still got to make shots, right? LeBron can want to win. They all want to win, but LeBron's still got to make some threes when he takes some of the bad shots that he'll take at the end of a clock, whatever. Yes, the extra day of rest helps him. It also helps the Heat because they were just as exhausted the last game. I think they get a real good chance to win that game in a blowout. I did not think that way in games 2, 3, and 4. I do think it's a Laker blowout is possible tonight, because they've solved some Heat offensive issues better than I think Miami solved a rested Lakers offensive issues. It doesn't mean it'll happen, because Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero can make threes, and maybe Jimmy Butler takes 6 threes and makes 4 today. Certainly possible. But AD on Jimmy Butler, Caruso on Tyler Hero, those are good matchups for LA. If Bam, I think, will play a little bit better. Remember, every game these guys play, they're generating information in their own brain on how best to attack and defend their opponents. Well, Bam missed half of game 1, all of game 2, all of game 3. So the Lakers also missed those information buildups against Bam, but they just played Jokic. He's a more athletic Jokic that doesn't shoot threes. They kind of wash each other out. They're used to so that LA has to adjust the other way around with what they're attacking with Bam. In other words, Bam has a hard adjustment to that. I think LA could blow this game open in, not minute 1, but if I was a betting person, I think the Lakers give up 7.5, and I'm not a betting person. Like that line to me for the first time is like, this could be a 15-point game, just because Miami down 12 with 5 to play. Like, they're not going to win that game, and they're tired too. LA's a better team. I think Miami will fight, like you said, Jarod, but I think it could end tonight. I mean, just, of course, it could actually go game 7. It goes to game 6. Anything's possible if they were to win tonight. LA's the better team, and KCP playing really well the other night means something. They've just kind of found a rhythm. I thought they made a mistake not playing Dwight more. They don't. It's working out just fine. I'm going to probably feature him in a piece on Monday if there's not a game 7.
Excellent.
He's doing some things that are heretofore I've never seen before, in my opinion.
I mean,
for this moment in time in Orlando, and I'm going to explore that if they win tonight or Sunday night. But I just want to say this. Thank you to the NBA. I'll probably say it again Monday. They've done yeoman's work. And I hope we get through virus-free, whatever this last game is. It's amazing that they've had way more people in their bubble than the White House has. have yet to show a positive test that we're aware of. Certainly not an outbreak. It's an embarrassment for our country that we can't even protect our so-called leaders because they're not leaders. The NBA has done that, and so I'm not doing congratulations yet. We don't say Mazel Tov until the ink is dry. But we're trending nicely.
Hey, one little thing. We've been hearing it whole, and I'm not going to tell you that everything's perfect. But if it's rigged in a way to make the NBA money, to make its partners money, this series would be extended. There's no better time. Right. There's no better incremental income difference you can make than extending the finals. Right? You've been losing money all playoffs. And this would be like a Sunday ABC game, all those commercials, right? That's money that's just gone, right? Game 7 would be the highest rated game of the year if they had it, and they're just gone, right? So if it ends tonight, even if it ends in game 6, like they're doing a terrible job of making themselves money.
and had been doing a terrible job for decades, right? Pat Ewing went to the Knicks. They've been doing a terrible job because Shaquille in Orlando and LeBron in Cleveland and Wiggins in Cleveland and Kyrie in Cleveland, right? And Cat in Minnesota. Like, it go on and on and on.
Well, and actually, on the rig point, there's a huge one. Doesn't count for the NBA's network TV deals. Like, you would never have the Raptors in the finals if it's rigged. Never, ever, ever. They'd never be on TV, period. Like,
I mean, they're barely on TV now.
Yeah.
I do have to take back some of my KCP slander, you know? Like, I remember
he came
in the offseason being like, oh, Clutch getting KCP all this money. Like, that's not going to work out. KCP has been far better because the margins are so important, right? And what he's doing, he can guard way better than I thought he can guard, and he can hit threes. And guess what? Miami, and the way the offense is working for LA, he's getting a ton of wide open corner threes. And listen, an average NBA player is going to hit a fair amount of wide open corners because they're wide open. You're going to make your fair share. And, you know, he's doing that and more. So shouts to KCP for being better than I thought he would be.
Go and look at the after the Lakers lost game 1 to the Blazers, and at both ends, Lakers Twitter was basically like,
get rid of this guy.
I always knew we were doomed because of this idiot, right? They just bailed on that guy. And like, you know, it's just, I don't think it shows anything other than one game is not a good.
One game, right. So I did a podcast yesterday, and the question was, everyone's so surprised that the Lakers are here. And I just said, well, I mean, we published at TrueHoop that they would win June 12th. And here's why we thought they would win. And it's not surprising at all that I talk about elasticity of a team. Henry and I talk this a lot. The Clippers had the best elasticity in terms of what they could get to ultimately because they had the most talent, right? But they also had the best potential to snap it and break, which Denver snapped them, right? LA was second. So it's just a matter of how much can they stretch? Can KCP play the kind of defense he's played? By the way, he had a big-time layup against Duncan Robinson late in the game. His speed on defense has been super important. Caruso has been Mr. Glue guy, right? Their three-headed center monster, which got them to the number 1 seed to begin with. You go on and on and on. And then I think AD and LeBron. I think LeBron is a wise man and recognizes there's no one like this guy. And I have to do my thing, but he's got to do his thing too. And LeBron has not been great at this. LeBron has not been great at starring and having his number 2 star, right, over the course of a whole game, not just in Kyrie's one moment against the Warriors. AD has been here the whole time and he would not be playing defense like this if he wasn't feeling it to some degree anyway. I think we'd all be shocked if he pulled a Kawhi and left, right? Although we'd understand it. LeBron,
who knows?
Yeah, I agree. LeBron is not going to be better next year. We know that. He's picking his spots now. It's why he's had turnovers. He's got to save himself. AD should be looking around like, Boston looks pretty good now. Maybe not 2 years ago, but now.
Well, and all these Dwight, how old is like Dwight Howard, Rajon Rondo, like the players that they require to be good next year? Are they gonna be good next year? Like, you got to worry about that.
Right. No, they need to upgrade at their depth for in my opinion. They can. There's lots of good minimum players that'll be available. Doesn't mean they will.
The thing that you hit on there, Coach, too, and we used to do this all the time, right? Whenever you look at a series matchup, you can go analytical and look at three-point corner shooting, defensive metrics, and all that. But ultimately, the NBA in a 7-game series, it always comes down to at the end when you're like, who's got the best guys, right? Like, and then it's like, LeBron, Anthony Davis, 2 top 5 guys. Well, that's a big plus in that column, right? And then it's like these guys, wow.
That's what we down on our piece. I if you remember, I credited Horace Broadnax, who played for Georgetown, but I saw him play in high school and was started there for, but they had Horace, and the team I was rooting for who knocked us out didn't have Horace. When you've got 2 of the best 5, and they do have 2 of the best 5 players on the planet, the other team has to gel, right? They're not going to have the duo, and they just don't have. They didn't have enough time. The bubble didn't allow the Clippers And maybe it never would have. It's fair to say the Clippers were always going to be doomed to some degree. So that brings us to Henry's magnificent tweet yesterday. We talked about this. I talked to him before he tweeted it. Like, I like Lawrence Franks. When I knew Lawrence Frank, he was our canteen boy at 5-star. That's where you got your candy and soda pop from, and toothbrushes, whatever. It was a canteen of 5-star. He was amazing. Super earnest guy. He was the manager for Bobby Knight. And now he's the executive of the year for doing what? Getting his team to the conference finals and maybe worse next year and then they're done. That was weird to me. Yeah, go ahead about your tweet, Henry.
I mean, mostly I think, look, I think I'm right in saying that they vote for this award. Ready was going to win the championship.
Oh, right,
the same thing happened last year, right? Like the Bucks front office won it. So basically, like in your head, you're projecting when this award's going to come out. Everybody's going to say the Clippers were so good, and they did. They made a bunch of moves and didn't. Now we know even come close to winning a championship. So, I don't know. The more I think about it, that it probably should have been Sam Presti, right? Like, you know, they mostly for this trade. I mean, they're going to be a dynasty. They flat are mostly because of that Paul George trade. Like they have so, like he basically did the Sam Presti rebuild of the 76ers in like a day. Like,
coffee.
Like, you know, it's just incredible. It's incredible. And the Clippers are going to pay for this. Like they are going to be ground to dust. like they're going to be bad for a long time because of this. And it's hard to give the guy.
They didn't even win the West. You know? They didn't win the regular season West. They didn't win the postseason West, although I guess the vote was done for the regular season.
Year window next year, right?
A good year. They'll be really good next year. They might be favorites.
And then when everybody moves or is older or whatever, because of the pick swaps, they're going to be terrible and be no way near the top 5 of any draft for what? Like 5 years, 5 or 6 years. That's recipe for disaster. That's just.
They're gonna need like a new Stepien role. Yeah. Like you know what I mean? Because they gave up every other pick, and then the pick swaps in between means they actually have the chance to be. I said ground to dust. Maybe that was a little harsh, but they could really be bad.
Well, they're gonna be who they were for the majority of my lifetime, the Clippers, right? Like,
except now really expensive. It's going to be incredible. Like it was an incredible trade for the Thunder. I mean,
you know what we appreciate, Henry, is that run from when Doc got there until next year. That's going to be the high watermark for the LA Clippers because the rest of their entire franchise history has been, you know, disastrous. So that's it. That's the high watermark.
Well, like, I mean, quite honestly, like, what else can they do? Like, you know, they're like, I mean, I guess maybe whatever. Let's not get lost on the Clippers, but like, they're gonna have. I can't quite picture how they get another good player
unless you trade someone. But the problem is,
they can develop. They can develop. Yeah. Go ahead, Jarod.
I was gonna say, who are you gonna trade right now? Paul George's value is probably at his lowest. Like, he's still a very good player, but I bet no teams are like, we don't want that dude. So what are you getting back? You know,
right? They're not going to get. They're likely not going to get anyone as good as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It's fair to say. Shamit's a good player. Like, they've got some talent. They've got Terrence Mann is really talented. Kabungale from Florida State has got some talent. He's a lottery pick. They're going to have to do that, right? They're going to have to do what the Heat did with Duncan Robinson, right? They're going to have to find out
without picks.
Right. They're going to have to do it on the second round.
Yeah.
And Caliente, Clippers, like they're going to have to, and we have no idea if they can do that. It's fair to say. We don't know. The Heat have shown what they can do with some young guys. We don't know about the Clippers. I don't want to sign off, guys, without saying one thing regarding the debate Wednesday night and Kamala's, I thought, graceful way of telling the guy, stop interrupting me. As somebody who's been married a long time, and by no means am I any good at this. I'm not as bad as Mike Pence ever, but I've learned over the years to shut my mouth. My wife is talking and other women are talking, not to use my incredibly loud microphone built-in voice to silence them just because I think I have an idea they may or may not like, or I normally think they probably would like it, but I'm supposed to shut my mouth and let them speak. And I wasn't great at this for a long time. I'm probably not great at it now, but I'm better because I don't want to get divorced. And my wife speaks up the way ridiculed and criticized for that. And we can never stand back and let people ridicule a woman for reminding us that we're supposed to be quiet when they're talking. And so I don't. When I hear someone else cut off any woman, I say, let her finish, please. And we need to always be mindful of that. We could get better at that, period. We're allowed to get better. We're supposed to get better. Like we're supposed to grow up, right? And I'm still trying. And I'm so thankful that Kamala did it the way she did it. And I don't use the B word anymore. Pretty much never. And it's because it's all I've been reading about on Twitter now. I like to curse a lot, but that's not a word I'm going to use. And I don't like my friends using it around me anymore either. It's like the N word for me. We're done with that word because it's used as such a weapon unfairly. Just wanted to say that.
Well said, Coach. We got 24 days or so. That's the first day, right? So start of that new 7-game series I talked about, right? It's game 1. Okay, cool. The real work begins now going forward, right? Holding these people to account. You said X, Y, and Z. Why is it happening? Getting involved at your local level. Like, if we're going to make this better, we've got to continue with this. It's not just a one-off. All right, we're good now. You know, Orange Man's gone. We're all good. No. This is continuous.
I'll tell you what, Facebook said they're going to stop taking political ads on election day. And a lot of the response I saw was very cynical. And let's tap that conversation. It struck me as like, as you point out, Jarod, that's game 1. I think it really matters as, like a really good, the Lawfare podcast. Judy, I bet you listen to that. It's so pretty good. Dorky law stuff.
I love it.
So there were in I talk about presidential transition and like how it can go awry and what the nitty gritty of the Constitution is and fascinating stuff. We could talk about that a lot, but of course, like his nightmare scenario. This professor, I think he's from Harvard, who wrote the book, explaining like the nitty gritty of this gets to like Trump using his Twitter account or social media to start an armed revolution is one of the big worries, right? That's where I think this Facebook pullback matters a lot, right? I don't think they're immune to this thought, right? They just had a violent coup against the governor of Michigan planned in part on Facebook, right? Like they see this from the back end, right? So like, I feel like this is actually like hats off to Facebook for this. I think this is really important. I also think it's going to matter very much if Twitter upholds its ban on fomenting violence, right? Like, I'm
glad you brought that up, Henry, because this actually is hitting home for me. My wife is at the polling precinct on election day. She has to be there like at 5 a.m. Yeah. She's opening the place up. She's closing it down. She has a team with her. She had to do her training this week, and literally in the training in person, masked up and all of that. What do you do when people show up with guns? Like that came up in that meeting. And they had to go back and forth on what to do. And I don't know that they have any real answers. It's not an easy thing to answer, right? My wife's not packing.
And Trump's instructing it. He's courting it.
Yeah, right. This is my point, is what you're saying. And then it's building up on social media. Like it's going to happen. I am going to be, I don't know what day is Tuesday. We won't be doing Bring It In. I am going to be loitering at the parking lot of her rec center, I think it is, that she's going to be at. I have my son's baseball bat. That's about the best I can arm myself. But I'm gonna have a phone with me. Like someone's got to watch out for the people there, and I'm gonna be one of them. And it's how sick is that? Like I've never thought about doing that once ever. And I said, this is exactly what he's doing, Henry. He wants that. Anything they can do to create chaos to send it into the courts, which is, he's admitted this. I mean, Mr. Trump has admitted he wants this 9th justice to be on there for the election day. Like this is the part of the plan. He can't win, guys. He can't win the vote. Even if they cheat to get less people coming, there's just not enough. He can't win the vote. He knows that. The only way to do it is through the court system now, and that's what chaos can do.
This is I'm sorry, I'm referencing an obscure podcast from June, but this guy from the Law Podcast had a little fact that struck me as like ding ding ding, like incredibly important, which was I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but basically, the electors, come to represent the voters, then they don't actually have to do what the voters ask them to do.
Right.
But then at some point, the House started, before we get to the Supreme Court, according to this professor, and check my work here, but the House, he's like, if the House and the Senate are both Democratic, game over. Like, then the House and the Senate together can certify the votes, and that's the end of it. I don't think, back when, these dirty tricks were being projected, I don't think everybody thought that it could be so bad for Republicans in the polls, right? So we'll see what happens, but it strikes me suddenly like, ooh, these this Lindsey Graham South Carolina race, or these other like pivotal races, suddenly are the whole ball game, conceivably.
Yeah, I mean, as always, right? Watch the funny business and the shenanigans going on in the swing states, right? Like we know where the general states are voting, and what's interesting is actually look at how sort of tangentially related to this, how California switched its like to be a heavy Republican state, right? I mean, they gave us Richard Nixon, I believe, is from California, and Ronald Reagan, right? Like, so, but then over time, how that shifted. But watch these swing states and whatever funny business is going on with stadiums no longer being able to be used, poll places closing, really, like, just pay attention to that stuff, man. Like, this is, I say it literally ad nauseum, right? Voter suppression is real. Voter fraud is a myth, right? Like, there's no fraud in voting. It's suppressing votes. That's what they're doing. That is their way of trying to rig an election.
Can I just pivot back to a little thing earlier? Also Westbrook's $8,000 tip. Like love it. And honestly, like, I've complained about the guy on the court, but like off the court, like I've never heard anything better, right? Like, and in particular, I think they made fun of him for being a good husband. Like
his colleagues, his peers,
his coworker. In fact, I like marriage. That's cool. I'm glad that he seems to be seriously into his wife. In a way he took flack for. Anyway, so that's awesome. However, I'm noticing a little thing. So we live in this time where the floor, as we've discussed earlier, the floor has fallen from beneath the working class, right? And everybody feels the heat and a tremendous amount of media now. Stuff my kids love, stuff, this story is like a lottery type story, right? Like everything still sucks for everyone who cleans every hotel room at Disney, except one person got $8,000. And I think this lottery type story, there are a lot of people just like, like Ellen, handing out cash, like makes us all feel like everything is getting better or is okay or is good enough, but it's not solving the problem. It's just a little sideshow, right? It's just a tip. It's a tip. And actually tipping in general cannot be our solution.
No,
right?
for sure.
Can't be less of right? We've actually raised the floor, right? This is why I'm always on about healthcare. But I feel like, watch out, just note how much of the media that you come across is like a feel-good story of like a lottery type event.
Yeah, one-off situation.
One of those is fine, but that's our whole goddamn solution is not fine.
No, I say it all the time. You can do a universal basic income, and guess what? You don't have to. If you actually set that up, it does not affect the day-to-day life of the ruling class in any one noticeable way. They still can have their yachts, their 65 summer homes. Nothing changes. Literally nothing changes if everyone has universal basic income. Nothing. But that's the story for a different day.
I want to go back to, you were talking about science, Henry, and one of the things. I'm still reading about studies going on right now about the effectiveness of masks and which masks are the most effective and why. And saying masks aren't good. They're not studying it. The people who are telling you masks are good are still studying it. Like, that is what science really is about. It's the constant furthering of knowledge and the knowledge base and the variables involved in when are masks so good and why are they so good. And it's astounding that there is an ignorance to that. I feel like I laugh all the time this is going back probably 10, 15 years, when new studies would come out about how tobacco and smoking cigarettes is bad for you. Like, we know. Like, you don't have to study this anymore. But they did for lots of different reasons, probably. But we know masks are better for us. They're not. It's great to know they're trying to find out more and more as they need to. Which they're saying the things you pull up over your head, your mouth and nose, not so effective. They're talking about maybe reducing the viral load. It used to be initially it only helped the people you're with. Now they're saying it might reduce the viral load. The key word is might, because they're still no. Thank goodness for that. Like, that's what they're doing. That's why it's science. Other than that, it's just faith.
And it's like, we overvalue our emotions, right? Like that anybody would not want to wear a mask because they don't like the feeling of wearing a mask or the look of it, right? So we got feelings and looks. They're real things. Like if you can't solve that, you're not going to have everybody wearing masks. Like, so you do have to solve it. But that's why we're questioning masks. It isn't because of a study,
Right?
No, they're definitely not.
Like,
they're not studying it.
I don't like it.
Well, you know what's so funny, Henry? That point you just made. Like, I don't know if you've been seeing this. Like, oftentimes, like, because we work in media, like they'll be like post-game stand-up or whatever, right? So whether it's in an NFL stadium or down in the bubble, whatever, Malika, whoever these people are, will do like a Sports Center hit or whatever, and you'll invariably see on Twitter when they post a picture, seems kind of silly to wear a mask in an empty stadium, and it's like, well, dummy, but it's not. Like, you think she's by herself? Like, there's a production crew that's there that has to be in her. Number one. Number two, there's a reason why there's no.
Literally, like the guy from the NBA told me that. He's like, look, you don't get to 0 cases with testing.
Right.
You can get to a very low number, but 0 cases is masks, right? And this thing they're doing with the magic bands is a big part of it. Like, so everyone's wearing a freaking Big Brother tracking device 24/7, and that's why Daniel House didn't play.
Yeah, right. That may have led the Lakers winning a championship. On the thing of emotion, before we go on this exact subject for the NBA Finals, it's very sweet that they're wearing the Black Mamba jerseys tonight for the Lakers. It'll have nothing to do with whether or not they win the game. Like, if they don't win the game tonight, it won't be because of the jerseys they're wearing. They want to win equally whether they're wearing those jerseys or not. It's cute. It's a nice story. I'm all for it. But don't think for 1 second it's going to earn anyone any points, rebounds, assists, steals, turnovers, blocks. It has no impact at all.
Story, though. That's what's going to lead all the show.
Exactly. But this is Henry's.
For Kobe.
Right. This doesn't mean anything. The Miami Heat are going to do everything they can to win this game. The Lakers are exactly the same thing. And if they win or not, it won't be because of those jerseys. They could change at halftime, and it also won't matter. It just doesn't matter. Science doesn't care about that kind of stuff. It's a fun story, but it just doesn't. And it's a nice gesture. I'm all for it. But, you hear people say, well, we're up 3-2. We're going back to the other game. We're only packing for one night. Well, great. You better get ready to do the laundry.
Yeah, hope you go to the laundry room.
You don't want to win anymore because you didn't pack for 2 nights. Like, no. That is a journalist media fan narrative that players may say because they know how to talk to the media, but it has no bearing on what really is happening. They just want to win the game as much as possible, no matter whether they have to do laundry or not. Okay, let's be fair.
Wait, Henry, the all-time great one is the money Ty Lue put in the ceiling at Oracle. Well, you lost that game. You were coming out to get that money. Someone was taking it.
I don't know.
Like that's.
It was a game. They were down after being down 3-1. Ty Lue's like in the locker room or whatever, and he gets money from all the players.
Yeah.
Here, give me money here. Puts it in a bag, stuffs it inside the top of the visiting room. Well,
like above a ceiling tile.
We gotta come back to get our money,
yeah.
so we gotta win the next game.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Had nothing to do with Kyrie making that shot or Draymond Green getting suspended or Curry hurting his ankle, but that's a great story. That's breathing spirit. That's breathing spirit.
Breathing spirit.
You gotta have something to talk about.
Always,
you know what I mean?
Gerard, it always comes back to that goddamn capitalist machine.
Listen, man. Hey,
always about the green.
Number one band in the world, baby.
Well done.
Henry, you want to tease?
Take a bow. Yeah.
You want to tease next week?
Okay, so next week we're gonna. It broke out on Wednesday that we were debating the greatest of all time. So now we're gonna be a little more in trouble to make our case for who are the greatest players of all time. The exact format will be extremely honed but
And
hasn't
we'll
been home
yelling,
yet.
"Oh, you're wrong. This person's better."
All right, you guys.
Hey,
Thank
be
you very
safe.
much.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thanks, David.